Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the Ellettsville Plan Commission meeting on May 2nd, Planning Director Denise Line gave the Planning Department update. She shared that they have tentatively scheduled a Unified Development Ordinance open house for the 30th of May.
We've been drafting our Unified Development Ordinance. The draft's been completed, and the person facilitating that and drafting it and I are going to meet next week and go through it sentence by sentence. And I wanted to remind you the UDO open house is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, May 30th at 5:30 p.m. When I have a firm date, I'll email you all and let you know.
Plan Commission President David Drake asked whether or not the Plan Commission reviews the UDO during the open house. Line responded that it is a time for the public to give their input.
Is that when we review that?
It's to get public input and talk about what we've been drafting, and then sometime after that, either a little before or after, you'll receive a draft.
Line said she plans to have the UDO draft ready for the Plan Commission meeting in July. At the May 2nd Monroe County Election Board meeting, County Clerk Nicole Brown gave an update on early voting for the upcoming primary election.
Early voting is going on and in full swing. I am waiting for numbers as we speak from today, but I stopped at election operations about an hour ago, and they are very enthusiastically hopeful for 300 voters today, but at least as of yesterday, we were roughly at 3.5%. Many clerks across the state are noting an incredibly low turnout, lower than expectations. Many people seem to feel like, it's a done deal as far as candidates, and so that is regrettable, but I should have those numbers for you any second. And in the meantime, while I wait for those numbers, I want to make you aware of 4 important dates for the rest of this month. Saturday the 4th is the second Saturday that you are eligible to vote at Election Operations 302 South Walnut, and early voting does end on May 6th, which is Monday at noon. That will end, and so if you have not voted early by noon on the 6th, then you will report to your regular election station or election polling site on election day. And then the 17th is 10 days after the election, and at that point we will be together to reconcile provisional ballots. I always request that meeting start at 12:01 p.m. because if you were issued a provisional ballot, you have until noon on the 17th to cure that provisional ballot. And so the numbers that I have as far as early voting, 163 people have voted today. There have been 3,189 people who have voted early. And let's tease that out a little bit. 1,389 have mailed ballots. I'm sorry, let me do it again. 1,389 ballots were mailed out. 850 ballots have been returned. That means that 539 ballots are still out. So those are my clerk updates, and thank you, Kylie, for getting me those numbers.
Democratic Chair John Fernandez commented that his early voting experience was positive. He thanked election workers for making it a smooth process.
I did vote early last week before I went out of town. The folks working there just were wonderful. It was a great experience. It was busy, which was nice. And I'll say publicly what I said to the folks who were there at Election Central, how much I appreciate what they do. Our democracy doesn't work if we don't have fair and accurate, accessible balloting and voting, and they do a great job ensuring that we have a good election here.
Then Election Supervisor Kylie Moreland provided an update from Monroe County Election Central. She asked for the status of late CFA4 filings.
For the Election Central update, I have the incomplete registration detail report, which was sent to each of you. We had 10 individuals whose voter registration that was sent in, it was unable to fix in order for them to be eligible to vote in the primary election. They can try again to fill out that and then get everything up to date for the for the general. And then we also have on there the late CFA4 filings. I sent you those 3 individuals as well, and just basically want to know how we want to move forward with the late CFA4s.
Fernandez responded to Moreland's question about the late candidate filings.
So as I understand it, that seems like a pretty good cure rate, if you will, in terms of the total amount of registrations that were incomplete. Seems that almost, 80% have been cured, and just have a short or a small number that can't track down the people to get them fixed, right?
Yeah, we're with the late CFA4s, we have 3 of them, and I think only 1 has ever been late once, and so I don't really see any reason right now to move forward with any ideas on that, just since we don't have the policy redone yet.
Excuse me, sorry. I mean, my preference would be to just kind of put a pause on that as long as we're getting them, even if some of them are a little late, so that when the primary's over, as we talked about earlier, we can kind of take a look at that policy and come up with something that is administratively more streamlined. Is that?
Yeah, that works for me.
Republican Vice Chair Judith Benkart asked Monroe County Attorney Molly Turner King about a database that would send candidates automatic email reminders regarding deadlines.
TSD is looking at the on whether they can create a database which would, in essence, send out automatic emails to candidates as a reminder, so that it alleviates some of the work that Election Central has picked up. Although they're not required to do it, it is apparently from our last meeting something that candidates rely on. And so we're just exploring what technological options we have available.
Then again, that would take place after the primary, maybe we get it all worked out this summer. And then that would be included in any policy that we...
Yeah, me and Molly spoke about that a little bit, and I agree that I think it would be a great idea because it would help out in our office, and then it would be the same amount of data entry that we're already doing with spreadsheets. It would just be an automatic and easier way to keep record of all of this.
Next, the board heard an update on the Vote Center Study Committee from co-chair Ralph Shaw.
Vote Center Study Committee met twice in the past month. We heard one time from IU students about their experiences with the current voting system. Some of them come from counties that have vote centers, and so they were surprised to come here and discover that we did not. And some of them had experiences of living on campus, but their polling place was far away, and so that was another complication that they expressed to us. The reason we met with the students was because we wanted to hear from them before they go out of town. Anyway, that was our plan. And then the next session we had just last week was with the vendors for the equipment that we use for our votes here, and to talk about what would be required if we were to move to vote centers using the print-on-demand ballots. Then we also decided not to meet on May 8, which would be our normally scheduled second Wednesday, but everybody is going to be not quite mentally capable the day after election, so we're skipping that day. And then we will resume. We have on our calendar hearing from other people in the community who are not necessarily IU students, but people who have disabilities in voting, people who live in outlying parts of the county. And that's sort of our plan over the summer.
The board then heard a resolution on student poll workers for the upcoming primary election. Turner King read and explained the resolution.
The resolution says that you recognize that individuals who are 16 years of age but under 18 can be afforded the opportunity to have a live experience in working in local democracy and serve in an important community function. It cites the statute that says you have to unanimously approve the list. And you have to determine the capacity that in which a student worker can perform. And I think historically it's either in the position of a clerk or a sheriff. So I put that in the resolution. But if the election board wants to amend those capacities, I can do that right now. I will say that students are not allowed to serve as an inspector. That's the only statutory restriction. It indicates that we received a nomination list today, on today's date, as I'm updating the date right now. And that you are unanimously appointing the individuals listed in Exhibit A and B, which are attached, as long as they meet the following statutory requirements. It lists the statutory requirements, and then, like I said, serves in the position of clerk or sheriff. And so I would propose this resolution for approval.
The board approved the resolution unanimously. At the Monroe County Commissioners meeting on May 1st, the commissioners shared a statement concerning recent events at protests in Indiana University's Dunn Meadow.
We, the Monroe County Board of Commissioners, were shocked by the recent detention and arrest of scores of Indiana University students, faculty, and staffers during what was a peaceful protest regarding the Israeli-Hamas war in Gaza. Not only was this heavy-handed response entirely disproportionate, but the 11th hour change to IU's policy lacked transparency and is itself antithetical to all that Indiana University has historically supported, namely academic freedom and the freedoms granted to each of us in the Constitution of the United States.
To suggest that IU's policy changes were made in the name of public safety, while simultaneously inviting Indiana State Police officers clad in full riot gear to intervene, is both disingenuous and downright Orwellian. Indiana University's Dunn Meadow has seen many decades worth of peaceful protests under the previous long-standing assembly rules. By swiftly revising those rules with breathtakingly little public input or oversight, IU administrators must surely intend to have a chilling effect on free speech and peaceful assembly on campus. This is simply unacceptable.
And finally, we urge Indiana University administrators to revert to the 1969 Dunn Meadow policy to drop any criminal and campus disciplinary charges against the protesters swept up in the recent action, and to allow subsequently barred protesting students to return to campus.
Later, the commissioners heard from Commissioners Administrator Angie Purdy and Area 10 Director Chris Myers for the annual Rural Transit Agreement renewal. Purdy clarified that this year the agreement does not include transportation between Bloomington and Ellettsville.
This is something that we do every year with our contracts with Area 10 Rural Transit. I do want to point out for our community that this provides a much needed service. However, this service does not provide for the transportation between Ellettsville and Bloomington. That is a whole other can of worms at the moment. And if you have any questions, please talk to the town of Ellettsville's council to ask them. I know that Rural Transit will be happy to explain what's going on with that also. But I did want to ensure that people understand that the service from Ellettsville to Bloomington is not covered in this contract. And that is not because of something that either Area 10 wants to do or the commissioners want to do. This is set by the federal guidelines.
Area 10 Director Chris Myers outlined the cost that the county would have to match and said that they are looking to replace 2 of their large buses.
We are asking for your approval to apply for the renewal grant for a budget total of $1,806,359. Of that, the federal 5311 funds would be $868,409. State funds would be $311,595, and then the remainder is a combination of local government support, contracts, Medicaid, non-emergency medical transportation, and in-kind, and that's a total of $574,214. We are asking for Monroe County government support specifically of $80,000 towards that local match. In addition, the application is for capital, so we are looking to replace 2 of our large buses, which are 16 passenger, 2 wheelchair capacity, and that total would be $293,150, which has gone up quite a bit in the last few years. The local match for that is $58,630, and Area 10 has the funds to support that at this time.
Commissioner Penny Giffen said that the individuals using the service are making important trips.
I want to thank everybody for all the hard work to make sure that we do have the Ellettsville to Bloomington transit going, especially because we know that some of the folks that are making use of that are using that to get to doctor's offices, to pick up prescriptions. These are not frivolous kinds of activities that folks are engaged in.
Commissioner Julie Thomas explained why rural transit is not able to provide services to Ellettsville anymore and said that they are still working on finding a permanent solution.
So any origin or destination that falls into what NDOT and the census, using the census, have determined is a urbanized area, I would just call it a densely populated area, that can no longer be served by rural transit itself. But thank goodness you figured out a great way around it, and I cannot thank you for all your hard work. We got 2024 funded. I know we worked with the council to utilize ARPA funding for our share of it, and the Ellettsville Town Council agreed, but I think we do need a new plan going forward, and I had a good conversation with NDOT last week, so we will talk. We'll talk. So we have some work to do, and we have to come up with a permanent solution because we cannot keep spending our time doing this. I don't think it's useful. I think we need a permanent solution, or at least work toward a permanent solution.
During public comment on the rural transit renewal, Bloomington Chamber of Commerce Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, Christopher M.G., spoke in support of the rural transit.
I just want to echo Commissioner Given's comments about these rides and support this appropriation. These are not joy rides. These are essential transportation needs for citizens getting to work, getting to doctor's appointments, and my hat's off to Ms. Myers, Rural Transit and Area 10 on this. The work they put in with the town of Ellettsville should be very much applauded. Commissioner Thomas especially, your work in getting this happen, and the Chamber is ready to help in any way we can to make a long-term solution. We can't go through this every year. This is not something that's sustainable. So we need to come up with a solution, and we're here to help in any way we can. But we thank everybody who's worked on this issue because it is a very important issue.
The County Commissioners' meeting scheduled for May 8th has been canceled. The Commissioners will meet again on May 13th. At the Bloomington City Council meeting on May 1st, Councilmember Isabel Piedmont Smith gave an update on their deliberations about public comment and how they might restructure it.
I did want to report back on our council work session that we held yesterday regarding how to take public comment. We had a good discussion last night among council members, and we did actually have a few public commenters at our meeting about public comment. So immediate steps, we are going to speak out against hate speech should it arise during open public comment period or any public comment period. We will immediately call it out. Second change that we can do very soon is related to the fact that we have a 20-minute time limit on public comment on items that are not on the agenda at the beginning of our meeting. And often, and I will do it again today, we ask how many people want to speak. And then we kind of divide the 20 minutes by how many people want to speak. So the amount of time people get to speak depends on how many other people get to speak, and it's not really a fair allocation of time. And we do that because In our municipal code, it says everybody shall have 5 minutes to speak. It also says the period is only 20 minutes long, and that the amount of time per person may be reduced by the chair depending on how many people are there to speak. So it's something we need to change in our code, but I intend to bring that forward expeditiously. In the long term and in the more holistic sense, we talked about what we want to accomplish by taking public comment, and whether there are different structures for meetings that we could hold, different types of meetings that would be much more conducive to engaging the public. And that's a conversation that will definitely continue. We might also continue some conversations about people registering before giving public comment, giving their name, their address, things like that, but we didn't make any decisions on that last night. So I just wanted to report that.
During public comment, Chair of the Human Rights Commission, Ryan Shaddy, spoke out against the hate speech at the council meeting on April 3rd.
Normally, as chair of the Bloomington-Monroe County Human Rights Commission, I typically stand before you celebrating the achievements of members of our community. However, tonight I am here this evening on behalf of the commission, dismayed and disgusted by the comments and actions of those who brought hate speech to the April 3rd, 2024 City Council meeting. And subsequently, I'm making this comment on what we wrote before this meeting, and a lot has happened since then as well. So, while we recognize the constitutional right of free speech for all, we as a commission feel compelled to now use our own free speech to denounce hateful rhetoric. We remind everyone that hate has no place in our community. The Human Rights Commission exists to enforce the Human Rights Ordinance, the Bloomington Human Rights Ordinance, and to educate our community about their rights and responsibilities under civil rights laws. We stand prepared to investigate all allegations of discrimination in housing, public accommodation, employment, and education based on membership in a protected class. To file a complaint, visit the Human Rights page on the city website or email human.rights@bloomington.in.gov. And we also wish to echo Councilmember Zulik's statement from the end of the council meeting on the night of the incidents. In the case of white supremacy, anti-Jewishness, anti-Palestinian, and I added this for you, Councilmember Zulik, and anti-LGBTQ comments, it's really easy to spew that kind of rhetoric without looking any of us in the eye. Your cowardice is noted. Thank you, council members, and have a good night.
Then the council revisited a resolution calling for a cessation of hostilities and for the delivery of humanitarian aid to civilians in Gaza, following the mayor's passive veto of the resolution on April 19th. City Clerk Nicole Bolden read the synopsis for Resolution 2024-08.
Resolution 2024-08, a resolution calling for a cessation of hostilities and for delivery of humanitarian aid to civilians in Gaza. The synopsis is as follows. This resolution is sponsored by Council Members Piedmont, Smith, and Rallo. It calls for national leaders to work toward a cessation of hostilities directed at innocent civilians in Gaza, a ceasefire to allow for the provision of humanitarian aid backed by significant financial support, the release of all hostages, and a lasting, peaceful solution to the conflict between Palestinians and the State of Israel.
City Council President Isabel Piedmont Smith provided a brief overview on the mayor's veto of the original resolution.
Just to clarify, this resolution was adopted unanimously on April 3rd. The mayor passively vetoed it on April 19th, and now it's back to us. So I don't know, I'm a co-sponsor. I don't really have more to say. We had a thorough discussion on April 3rd. Councilmember Rallo, did you want to say anything to remind us what this is?
Councilmember Dave Rallo spoke in solidarity with innocent people impacted by the war and Bloomington's history, passing similar resolutions against humanitarian crises.
People are still suffering and dying, and it needs to end. The World Food Program noted that 1.1 million people are nearing starvation. But I did want to say that Bloomington has a long history of these resolutions. As some people noted when they spoke, Charlotte Zitlow in the early 70s, over half a century ago, had a resolution against the violence in Southeast Asia. a very brave thing to do at the time. So we have a history of responding to humanitarian crises, and particularly those that involve U.S. And it helps amplify our constituents' voices. So I think it serves as a conduit to people who are in positions that can make a difference, that are responsible directly, and we have to hold them accountable, especially when innocent people, particularly children, are suffering and dying. So I'm certain that as more communities sign on, this is effective. It is effective. It makes a difference. It's not performative. It's something that does work. And so we shouldn't look away, and we shouldn't look inward. We should pay attention to what's happening in our name. And to help the community, citizens send a message to our congressional representatives, to the president, to end the suffering because they have the means to do that.
The Council previously passed the resolution unanimously on April 3rd. Council members again voted unanimously to pass the resolution on May 1st, formally overriding the mayor's veto. On April 29th, the Monroe County Commissioners held a public hearing regarding the jail feasibility study. According to a release sent out by the commissioners, the purpose of the hearing was to provide a, quote, feasibility study of possible alternatives to the construction or reconstruction of the county jail, end quote. The public hearing coincided with the release of the Monroe County Justice Study conducted by the RQAW Corporation, a consultant based out of Fishers, Indiana. Project manager Sanjay Patel introduced the staff working on the study and each of their roles.
There's been a lot of work put into this study. It's been about 4 months of work by some of my colleagues. In terms of introductions, besides myself, I have with me here Cole Walters, who did the heavy lifting. So if you've got anything, any faults with the study itself, you can blame him. I'll take the credit for the good parts of it. Also with me is Adam Mattingly, our mechanical engineer, and he'll be talking a lot about the issues with the current facility, what we've seen, and go into a little bit of detail of that. With me also Kevin Meyer at the back. He's our pretty face, and he's here for the marketing efforts. So that is us. There have been a lot of other people who have put a lot of effort into this. And I'd like to say thank you to the staff, Angie, very helpful with getting us the information we needed in a timely manner and getting us to this point in the report.
The Monroe County Justice Study can be found online via the county's website by visiting their Document Center page. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.